FedEx full, we commanding the block. Burgundy and gold, got the city on lock. Hustling plays, they don't need to pretend. DC reppin' strong and we fight to the end. Commanders moving, no breaks, no pause. Hands in the dirt, respecting the call. KDot and Amit, dissect the grind. District divider with a city in mind. Trying to dance why, don't miss a bit. And you gotta spread the words, so shit is shit. KDot.
Welcome, everyone, to District Divided, a DC sports podcast, more specifically, a Washington Commanders podcast. I am Amit, that is KDot, and this episode is about the Commanders wide receiver 2 position. There's been a whole lot of conversation about it. Free agency is right around the corner. So who would you like to see as the Commanders wide receiver 2? KDot and I are going to float a couple names around if we were not trading for somebody. Then we have a couple new hires. We have Jesse Madden and we have Brian Schneider. We're going to explain what their roles are moving forward. We got the comment mailbag as we always do. But before we begin this episode, if you could please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment as you always do, and KDot.
A-Train ran. He caught that flight. Too many felonies. Bitch got to get out of sight. Dies in the heat, but he won't quit. Fusion of life. Now shit is shit.
Short, sweet, incorrect, but to the point. Share this shit. We greatly appreciate it, guys. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So a lot of buzz around the wide receiver 2 position for the Washington Commanders. We know we have Terry McLaurin. We know we got Jaden Daniels, and then a lot of question marks right after that, with only Luke McCaffrey being the other wide receiver under contract. So the question is this, KDot. If we were not trading for Deebo Samuel and Cooper Kupp, etc., DK Metcalf, the names we floated before, and let's also say that Tee Higgins is kept by Cincinnati, because that seems to be the easy name you can just attach to this situation. Who are you looking at to sign as the wide receiver 2, or is it someone we just had last season?
Combination. But let me say this first. I am now at a particular point in time where I'm looking at everything, and you hear the news about Cincinnati as far as Tee Higgins, the franchise tag is coming. And Chris Godwin, they push back a date so they can continue negotiating. So it looks like Godwin's going to stay in Tampa Bay. DK Metcalf, we've been talking about it. No one else has been. Deebo Samuel thing, maybe, right? So like, if I look through even all of those guys, I'm starting to come to terms with, I prefer not to do any of those. If I'm being completely honest, I do think coming into this season, instead of getting rid of draft capital or spending a bunch of money on some guys that might be hitting certain age groups and all that, it's like, we got Jaden Daniels, you got a young kind of core that you're trying to build. I'd rather see what we can do and develop together, right? So yeah, if I'm going to do anything from a free agency standpoint, I'd like to bring back some of the guys we had. Dyami Brown shoots at the top of that list. But if we're looking at other dudes that are around the league that I'm like, all right, I would definitely kick the tires on, even if it costs me a little bit of money. The top 2, I would say, is Darius Slayton out of New York, who I think word is they're not franchise tagging him, so they're going to let him walk. He's I think when you look at this wide receiving core, over the course of this season, when Dyami Brown ended up being that take the top off the defense guy, it opened up some things, right? It opened up a lot of the offense. So the idea that if you got a Dyami Brown that can come back, even though he was kind of impressing us in some of the short game, what he was able to do after the catch, right? In certain aspects of his game, he was just kind of a game breaker. But Darius Slayton has been a take the top off a defense player. And look, he had a stellar rookie season, if I'm not mistaken, and ever since then, it's just kind of like, eh. But then you also got to think he's a fucking giant who's been throwing the football. Tommy DeVito? Like, what are we talking about, right? So the idea that he would come here with a Jaden Daniels, best guy that's ever thrown him a fucking football, I love that, and he would be super affordable, along the same lines as some of those, like, kick the tires types of guys that we got here last year that got us to a fucking NFC championship game. I just think it's worth doing. The other guy who's going to cost a bit more, but I think he's a better talent than Darius Slayton, would be Christian Kirk out of Jacksonville. Jacksonville's in a weird flux sort of situation as far as everything they have going. And the word is that there is a chance that Christian Kirk could be on the move where he's leaving. Right now, I think his salary is somewhere like the mid-20s million per year. I think that if you, in any circumstance, could get Christian Kirk at sub 20 million after it's been sort of disappointing in Jacksonville, I'd run to go do it. Not only is he a hell of a receiver, and Jacksonville is just a fucking weird place to be in, just a weird place to go. You're also talking about somebody that Cliff Kingsbury has talked about being one of his favorite receivers to have ever coached. They love each other. And the idea that you can bring in a dude that he knows, the same along the lines of like Zach Ertz, that he could trust, he understands what he would bring to a locker room. I think he's a great fit. And he's a dude that's an absolute stellar talent, would be a very, very decent number 2 to Terry McLaurin. And then you can kind of pick up the pieces through, I'm assuming they're going to draft a receiver. And maybe you bring back a Dyami Brown, maybe one more of those other guys, and you got Luke McCaffrey. And I'm completely satisfied with that.
Yeah, no, that's a solid couple names you mentioned there, KDot. We'll go through them one by one. Darius Slayton, I think the best point that you made over there is that who's been throwing him the football his entire career? And he's had moments where he's had big games for the Giants. So when we're looking at these wide receiver names, they may not be the most attractive in terms of fantasy football for a lot of fans that play and are like, Darius Slayton, I would never pick him up. Why would we suddenly have him as our wide receiver too? Well, that's where the context matters. If he has a guy like Jaden Daniels throwing him the football, things could absolutely change. Christian Kirk is a name that we have heard now many times with the Washington Commanders because of that expected cap relief that the Jacksonville Jaguars can have so that they can build accordingly. We'll see what Liam Cohen and co want to do over there with Christian Kirk. He's one of the names that I also have, and I think a lot of Commanders, content creators and fans will have as well, just because Cliff Kingsbury's connection to him is strong, and there are documented quotes of how he enjoys working with him. So I think he would be a really, really good option, and I think Christian Kirk would also want to come here. I think that would be a very mutual excitement for the two of them. I think
Who doesn't
Cliff Kingsbury and co would be like, exactly. And he's got the connection to Cliff Kingsbury. I think Christian Kirk, should he be released, I think we are far and away the heavy favorites to sign him. The other name I have in mind is another connection, and it's Rondale Moore he went to Purdue, but the Atlanta Falcons. He had a 1-year deal with them, but he had a season-ending knee injury before the season started. But he was a second-round pick in 2021, and he has been productive in the opportunities that he's gotten. And the reason it's important that it was 2021 is because that's when Cliff Kingsbury was there. And so that was a draft pick of Cliff Kingsbury as well. Rondale Moore is a very twitchy wide receiver. He's young. He's 25 years old, going to be 25 years old. So that's somebody that, to me, has a lot of talent, is in the early stages of his career. It didn't work out in Arizona, and he didn't get his prove-it opportunity because of the knee injury. But I think Cliff knows what he can do. Whenever he gets the ball, I'm always excited just as a neutral observer in that situation. I think he would be a really, really nice piece to have in this offense because he can also receive some jet sweeps. You can put him in the backfield. He's a smaller guy, but he's strong and he's really quick. So that's another name, KDot, that I'm kicking around in my head is Rondale Moore, and he'd be much, much cheaper than a whole lot of the options we've mentioned so far because he would be on yet another prove-it deal. Maybe not your 2 if you feel a bit nervous about that, but certainly somebody I'd add to the broom is Rondale Moore.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like if we're talking about wide receiver 2, this is when we get into kind of like it's like who do you feel comfortable? Like even Slayton's like on a cusp sort of thing. Like if you were to tell me Slayton's your number 2, do I feel great about your wide receiver room at that particular point? No, I definitely don't feel great. But if you're telling me that like you brought in Slayton and then him and Dyami Brown are competing in camp to see who was going to be the second receiver, and you have a third guy, and maybe Christian McCaffrey ends up being that pure slot receiver that you kind of need as far as the team goes, which I think he's probably going to be going into the season. Yeah, it's just, look, you look at some of these top upper echelon teams and you see them having like a true number 1 and number 2 receiver. But I mean, if I look through the course of last year, I mean, Philadelphia, absolutely, but there's not a position that Philadelphia had that wasn't completely stacked. So can't really compare them to anybody else as far as from a roster build standpoint. I just think that, like, I'll put it to you this way. if any of the trade compensation we could give to go get a Tee Higgins, to go get a Chris Godwin, to go get even a DK Metcalf, if I could package that exact same trade deal and go get Ashton Gentry in this fucking draft, I'd do that. I prefer to do that. I just think that there is more value in some other places. When you have a Terry McLaurin, you see what it is that they were able to do last season. Like, look, I know it was frustrating over the course of the season that we didn't really have that true number 2, but it was kind of cool in the sense that over the course of the season, everybody kind of had a turn with it at some point. You remember there was like Noah Brown had a moment, and then he was kind of hurt. Olamide Zaccheaus had multiple moments, and he would just couldn't really get it together for the entire season. Then Dyami Brown came out of nowhere and looked fucking amazing for a little bit of time, right? And then it's not like Dyami Brown looked like shit. It's just fumble. Like, that's what ended up happening, right? So, like, you look at it and you're like, okay, that's how you got to kind of do it until you can kind of come across somebody special. I don't know if I want to. To me, it's like I'm not making the trade unless I know that guy's not a number 2, but like a true flight number 1. That's what I want to do. I want to make sure that if I'm going to be giving away the draft compensation, I don't want to compliment. I want the guy to be the best motherfucker on the team. That's what I want. I want the guy to like comes in and is like, yeah, we gave up the development of all these other guys in a coaching staff that I trust their ability to do so. After you look into what we were able to do with the rookies that we had this year. And even knowing that we still had rookies that we didn't even get to see a whole lot of, that I still am curious to see. I still want to see more Ben Sinnott. I still very much want to see more Luke McCaffrey. I don't want anybody getting in their way necessarily from getting those snaps or those opportunities. I want to see what we have with them. See, man, unless Justin Jefferson becomes available, or it's like I just don't. I don't want to do it. Or like when you had Tennessee, like being just stupid with AJ Brown. Like if you come across like one of those situations, take advantage, do it. But for anyone else, there's just no one right now that blows my socks off in the sense of I want to give up a whole bunch to go get them. When I just see that, I look at this offense and I'm not putting it a receiver. I'm just saying we need playmakers. I don't give a fuck what positions it's in.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And I like your mentality of, hey, if I'm trading, I want him to be the guy, right? Like I'm not doing this for just a wide receiver 2. It doesn't really make sense to do that because we have guys we can develop in the meanwhile. In my Rondale Moore example, I think Dyami Brown would be my wide receiver 2 as I'm thinking more about it on the fly here. And I would have Rondale just in the room alongside Luke. I think that sort of situation I feel more comfortable with. Dyami Brown really did come on. We've mentioned it a couple times this offseason. Really came on when it mattered a lot. Speaking about the playoffs specifically, he showed up in big moments. So it would be great to see that continue to grow with Jaden because Dyami himself is quite young and finally sort of hit for us in a really important moment. Other free agent wide receivers that were not mentioned, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Brandon Cooks, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Williams. Mike Williams could be a guy that's a bit bigger. Go ahead, KDot.
I still think I have that list.
Oh, great.
Cool.
Yeah. Here you go. Yeah, this works. So
Okay.
Tee Higgins looks like he's going to go back to Cincinnati. Chris Godwin looks like he's going to go back to Tampa. And then exactly as you can see, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Darius Slayton, who KDot mentioned, Hollywood Brown, Stephon Diggs, Palmer, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Williams, Mac Hollins, another big receiver, big body there, Elijah Moore, Deontay Johnson, Tim Patrick, Tutu Atwell are the names that maybe you guys want, and feel free to throw those in the comments. And we'll chat about them as well. Free agency doesn't officially kick off for another couple weeks here, but these are the ideas we have so far. Any final thoughts here, KDot, before we shift the conversation over to the new hires?
I hope you guys are ready to have this exact same conversation for another 2 weeks.
Honestly, it was a dry news week. We were trying to figure this one out.
It's just, the best one is to get it the fuck together, man. We just need some other fucking sports content. Just go, make something exciting. God damn.
Well, I saw the USA Canada hockey fight, which seemed pretty cool in the Four Nations or whatever it's called.
I had to pull it to make a clip for one of the bars, and actually, it got a lot of views. It was kind of cool. That was the only I know there was a hockey game today. I know I had to promote it. I know I didn't watch it because I was on the road, so that was it.
And I'm in a different time zone for reasons. And so why don't we go ahead and switch over to the new hires? People doing well in life.
Do they extradite where you're
hired
at?
by the Washington? I believe so.
I believe so. What are we moving on?
So the Commanders made a couple new hires, and so it's important that we note them as well, because now that we have new ownership, everything matters, which is a really nice place to be, because that wasn't the case with the prior guy. So we have Brian Schneider being hired as the assistant special teams coordinator. He spent a lot of time in Seattle. He's entering his 18th season, very experienced guy, 18th season as a coach in the NFL. So we'll get into him in more detail in just a moment. And then Jesse Madden, not a whole lot of detail, just graduated from Michigan. It's his first job in the NFL. He's the grandson of John Madden, a very famous name, of course, in football. And he's going to be helping with offensive quality control. And so congrats to Jesse. Congrats to Brian also. They're part of the squad now. And KDot, over to you. Do you have any thoughts on Brian Schneider? We'll begin with him, and then we can go to Jesse.
My initial thing is I'm looking at those two pale faces against ours. It's just the alabaster's really shining. So with Brian, he has a long track record in the NFL, right? Was in San Francisco just last, and then he was in Seattle with Dan Quinn. And I think over his tenure with Dan, or his tenure in Seattle, because I don't think all of it was with Dan Quinn, but whatever. His tenure in Seattle, over those years that he was special teams coordinator, they led the league in a bunch of fucking stats. And it's like the fun ones. It's like special teams turnovers, like shit like that. So like the idea that you get somebody, the idea that you get like a madman sort of thing like that guy alongside of Larry Izzo for this unit, when you see like a Nick Bellore doing, bring in everybody. I love this coaching staff. If it gets bigger, it's only better in the sense. I love the idea that, like, even when we're thinking about all these free agent signings and all this kind of stuff, right? You know what I think about every time? It's like, who on the coaching staff might know that guy? And there's a good shot that they might, right? So it's like, you get this inside knowledge from everybody, right? And it's not, I know that everybody got this, like, mentality, like, too many cooks. It's too many cooks if everybody want to be a fucking independent agent on some shit. But if there is a mission statement and everybody knows what they're supposed to do and you do your fucking job, it's only a good thing. So, like, I love the idea of getting anyone with any tenure and anyone that has shown that they're able to do this job at a high level, bring them the fuck here.
Yeah. So Brian Schneider, Seahawks assistant coordinator, special teams coordinator, excuse me, from 2010 to 2020. All right. So long time there. Yep. And then over in San Francisco after that. So that's his resume. And Jesse Madden, of course, just fresh out of Michigan. He was part of the national championship team just a year ago. So he is fresh. Okay. So it's exciting to see how the coaching staff, the more experienced guys, are going to mold Jesse specifically. But with Brian, yeah, exactly to KDot's point, you can't have too many cooks when there is that mission statement. We've clearly brought in guys that buy into it and are not ego driven to the point that they're overstepping on each other. It's my special teams unit. No, it's mine. That's not happening. So it's an exciting time, right? Where we can talk about these hires and go, man, we actually have an organization that the prevailing point is that this organization is now being built the right way. That's what the main point of this segment is. We continue to win on those edges like we've talked about, which is great. So we'll see how they end up doing. Not a whole lot to say other than during Schneider's time with Seattle, led in takeaways, right? And let him block kicks. So maybe we get a little bit more of that as we continue to try and become the cream of the crop in the NFL. Any final thoughts, Kate, up before we move over to the comment mailbag?
Yeah, a couple. Number one, the coach. When you see these coaching staffs being built the way they are, and it's not like people are getting ran out of town and now they're here. These are dudes that, like, you start looking through the rest of the roster, it's like, these are some coveted guys. Like, other teams would be lucky to have these motherfuckers. And to me, it's the things that we don't see or don't get announced that's happening behind the scenes, which is Josh Harris is opening up the bank, son. He opened up the bank account. He's spending. This is spending. These are salaries that he is paying. He doesn't give a fuck. I love seeing that. I love seeing an owner that's willing to fucking pay and be able to defer and say, I mean, I don't know, but if you guys say it and I trust you, I'll pay for whatever. That's what I like. I love that shit. And as far as Jesse Madden, that's his name, right? Jesse Madden.
Jesse Madden.
What? I'm sorry, I heard something there. I'm just gonna let it go. The Madden kid. He was in Michigan with Jim fucking Harbaugh. And after Harbaugh leaves is when he decides, you know what? Time for me to be a coach too. That to me, for some reason, speaks volumes in the sense that I have the utmost respect for Jim Harbaugh, and I think he's one of those dudes where it's kind of like every once in a while you hear like I always love, because you know I like movies and stuff. I always love to hear behind the scenes in a movie. If you hear an actor or an actress is really, really interested in what's happening behind the camera, I'm always like, I'm gonna keep an eye out on that motherfucker. It's like Bradley Cooper. He was always asking questions. I always want to know what kind of camera was being used. What's this? What's that? I'm like, look out for you. You're gonna be able to make movies. Zendaya is somebody to do it. Zoe Kravitz actually did a pretty good movie last year. Blink twice. Like this to me is what it sounds like. At least the vibe that I got from Madden is like you can tell he understands it's in his blood. He wants to do it to the highest level, and he had in the college ranks one of the absolute best that have ever done it. Be able to kind of be a mentor in that sense. That is just one of those other things where it's like you look at some of these young guys that come in. And you see some of the young upstarts, whatever, that end up somewhere. You start looking through the resumes. What you end up finding out is like how many almost legendary people they work for early on in their careers. And you could just see it kind of molds them into something. Like it's just the little special sauce. They're able to take a little pieces away from this, that, and the other. So it's like I do think that like, I love this Madden hire. I love hearing any of these young guys. And if you start looking through the track record, I think that just as important as bringing in a bunch of guys that know their shit is making sure the next generation is being able to learn so they can take their place when it comes down to it. That's how you build a fucking organization.
I really like the take. Let me ask you this in a very slight counter. He's young. He's just getting started in his NFL career. You just mentioned that he was playing under Harbaugh. Why not the LA Chargers then? Why not work under Harbaugh? Do you think that was explored at all? Or like, why here then? I
don't know. I mean, that's the thing. I have no idea. I don't know if in LA, Harbaugh doesn't have it set up the way it needs to. I don't know on this particular thing if there's more money here than other places. I don't know where his family's at. I don't know. I don't know any of those details. Yeah. Like maybe there is something to it. It's a point. What I would say, it's not necessarily a point that I'm going to explore or dive into, but it's well worth having.
It's just a curiosity.
No, it's a curiosity. Yeah. I can totally understand where you're coming from on that. Yeah, there's that. There's also like, I also think a lot of times when you get some of these young dudes, when I talk about that resume, they learn from a lot of different people. It's like, I learned what I needed to from that guy. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to learn something else. I think that there are some guys that just like, there's knowledge to be gained somewhere. I need it. Like you get those dudes, the ones that are hungry for it. You can't stay with one guy in order to learn everything. What did I say? In order to be a great leader, you have to be the best fucking follower.
I haven't heard that before. It would explain a lot. That's great. I learned something new. Any final thoughts? Or should we move to the comment mailbag? All right, let's go ahead to the comment mailbag. Featuring an intro by our very own Nikki.
Comment mailbag time, motherfuckers. District divided, ain't got time for no suckers. Spread the word, get in line. OGs and new G's, it's your time. And spread the gospel, cause this shit is divine. Yeah.
And thank you as always for that intro, Nikki. I'm still laughing and I'm just stretching. We begin with, here is a series of fun ones. It's basically the same thing over and over again. From Chuck Pettit, 6550. Shout out. I'm going to read all four, and they're very short. Okay? And one of them's a repeat. Get the wide receiver from Bills wearing number 14. That's the first one. Hello. Where's number 14? That's 2 and 3. Fourth one. Get the Maryland player who plays for the Bills. All right, that's number 4. So, Chuck, continuing to live in the year 2023, has determined we should get Stephon Diggs from the Buffalo Bills, who is now, of course, with the Houston Texans, who, of course, suffered a pretty bad injury and hopes to be ready for the upcoming season. KDot, your thoughts on Stephon Diggs in the year 2023 and then after that?
Chuck, I need you, since you've completely broken the space-time continuum, there's some things I need to impart on you. Number one, Kamala Harris is going to win the presidency big time. You should put everything in Polymarket that you can on Harris winning. Trump can't fucking get this shit. You know it. We're living in great times right now, Chuck. Also, this chick is going to become very, very popular. It's called the Hawk Tool Girl. She's going to have a cryptocurrency that you need to pour everything in.
Buy it.
To be a multi-billionaire by the time 2025 rolls around. You are right there, buddy. You can make everything happen incredibly. It's just you just take my advice.
This man wants Chuck to go broke. We go over to Stephon Diggs. Interesting name, but I don't think he fits what we ultimately
he doesn't
fit.
He doesn't look, man.
That's where I'm at. It just doesn't fit.
Do you remember?
Find a way to fit him. I just don't see it.
I think it was Buffalo. It might have been Buffalo when they did this. It might even be before then. No, it might have been Minnesota, where the guys are walking around the locker room. They're asking certain questions, almost like superlatives, and they were asked like, "Who would you not let your sister date?" And universally,
Diggs.
Like, if you've been on Black Twitter, you know, I'm good. Like, I appreciate dude. Yeah, like maybe go to Baltimore.
I'll push back on the narrative that he's like this malcontent and this uber diva or something like that. It's not that, just to be clear. Teammate. So no, not a bad teammate at all.
Not good
and can be a very productive wide receiver. It's a mix of the vibes, and it's also like we talk about the little things about blocking. He's older now. He's coming off that injury. It just doesn't make sense for our profile. What?
Thought of something real funny? Can't say it.
Well, I'd love for you to tell me. Love for you to tell me after in that case. We go to Bad Boy to NYC. Hey, sorry for blue ball, you guys. So with KDot's thought that he can't see. Landing a top 5 quarterback in the draft that can play at an incredibly high level is as close to winning the effing lottery as you can get in the NFL. We did that. So now the conventional build through the draft way of getting there kind of goes out the window. When you can land a game changer like Myles Garrett, you move heaven and earth to get him. Period. KDot, your reaction to that comment?
I don't know what you're supposed to do in this situation because it's not one you can really compare it to.
It's unprecedented.
Right? You go from a 4-win team to NFC Championship game and your quarterback's the savior. Like, what are you supposed to do? Like, it's just not, there's nothing. Like, you see the amount of 1-year free agents that are coming off the books. There's nothing to compare this to. There's just nothing. Like, I don't know what, my opinion is like, if you can get good players, do it. Like, and try to develop as much as you can. Yeah, I think that's all you can do. I think the moment you start putting like this extra unnecessary pressure in the sense of, oh my God, we have that window. It's closing because Jaden's on his rookie contract. We need to get the shit in here right now. Is you're cheating the process. Like, to me, it's I trust those guys are not going to go crazy. I mean, maybe as Amit was able to convince, maybe the Marshawn Lattimore thing was maybe they are a little crazy, but I do think that they're going to have a process to what it is they're doing. And every time I hear another reporter talk about how aggressive we're going to be in free agency and everything, it's one more time I think we're not going to be.
Yeah. The way I think about this comment is, so I agree with the first part, landing a top 5 quarterback in the draft that can play at that level. We hit the lottery. We did. We won it. We won the lottery in the NFL with this kid, right? Thank goodness for that. I disagree with the build through the draft goes out the window. I think we continue on that path because here's the thing. If you have a good, not great NFL quarterback, heck, you can even have a great one, but we have a special one. So when he signs his 5-year, 500 million, whatever the hell it's going to be when the cap is whatever it is at that time, we will still be able to win Super Bowls at that time because he's there. That's not true with some of the other guys. That's why there's debate around whether you pay Tua, whether you pay Dak, whether you pay, the list goes on and on. There's no question with him. When he gets extended, we have no problems, and we still feel the window's open. That's the difference. That's why I say continue to build through the draft. This is not a situation where you need to be uber aggressive. But Myles Garrett is also special. So if special players come on potentially to the trade market, yeah, you move heaven and earth to do it. Anything short of that, you don't move heaven and earth. You keep the picks, you proceed. That's the way I see it.
Marshawn Lattimore. God damn, I had another joke. I just stepped on it because I couldn't help myself. What was I going to say?
You throw it in the
hitting the lottery.
Mailbag.
Hitting the lottery.
The only, next time.
the only bigger win is if you, Chuck, invest in a hot Tua coin. Like, see, it's not that good a joke. I stepped all over the Marshawn Lattimore.
I love how much you love it. It's also just so late right now for you. We go over to Big Papa Grizzly with 3 comments.
I've been up for so long.
So here's you have. I'm proud of you. Here's Big Papa's first one. If you want the old name back, you probably believe in QAnon. That's the first one. And yeah, he enjoyed that one too. And the second one, I'm excited for this offseason even more than last year. The draft is looking real strong in areas of our needs and weak where we don't care to look. All the coaches seem to already be hyped for next season. There's dysfunction across the NFL, and none of it has to do with us. At least we know what Joe Biden has been doing for 4 years, running the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, and Ron has become the new anti-drug poster child. All of this, and we know that it's eating at Yacht Bitch's soul. Life is good, gentlemen. KDot, your reaction to that one?
I appreciate he dropped enough political stuff that I don't know what end of the spectrum he's at. But it's like, I appreciate that much. He's like, everybody can get it. So I dig it. I think he's right as far as the people that say the shit about the name. That's it. That's all I got for you.
That's fair. It is a very, very exciting offseason, and I agree on the draft take. We talk about the interior defensive line across the board. There's supposed to be some really good prospects. The defensive side of the ball is supposed to be stronger this year in the draft, and I think we're going to invest a lot on that side of the ball, especially because Big Doug, another content creator, follow his pod as well, does one with George Carmi. They do a great job. He's been hearing around the league. We can post the link to that tweet in our description, that the front office for the Commanders is more optimistic about the offensive line than the fans are. It doesn't necessarily mean they won't address it, but that we view the offensive line as more of a concern than they do is what he's hearing from people around the league, not just in Washington, but around the league. If that is true, then you would definitely see a lot of investment on the defensive side of the ball. It's the point I'm making there. Get out your reaction to that. Yeah, face.
Just that. I don't know what I think about our offensive line. I don't think it's bad. I do think it can be improved. Absolutely. I do think that some guys are going to get better with time. I'm looking at you, Brandon Coleman. I also think depending on how it is they shift things, it doesn't need that much. To me, it's like I look at it from a depth standpoint. There's certain guys that ended up having to play more than I wanted them to play. I'll put it that way. And I always think offensive line more than any other unit is the one where I care about depth.
Yeah. No, these guys, they go down very frequently, and you can never have enough quality, right? We talked about, not to throw him under the bus, but we talked about, Trent Scott having to fill in for Sam Cosmi. And KDot had mentioned, hey, I don't know how long we're going to see that for. He may end up getting pulled. I think we ended up seeing that, right? So, you want depth at every single position so that if and when certain linemen go down, you can feel comfortable proceeding with your offensive game plan. Heck, when Tyler Biadasz missed time, especially center position, super important, and Michael Dieter comes in, it changed. The amount of time that Jaden had in the pocket changed. And in the mic'd up, he's like, Jaden, thank you so much. Right? Like, you don't necessarily want that to be what your backup center's saying in that moment. You just want him to step up, and you want it to just continue to flow as it's going on. So we need to continue addressing those positions. Big Papa with one more. Saquon out here making it real hard to hate him. Pulling the ball boy out of the crowd at the parade so he could participate too. Fine, bro. Here are your flowers. Only one bouquet, though. And you don't get one for almost beating the rushing record. KDot, did you see that clip of Saquon pulling the guy out?
No. Who are you guys watching parade shit? You're watching Eagles parade shit? I'm sorry. No. Absolutely not. I heard some news reports about some stuff happening there, which I won't get into, but expected. Beyond that, it's like, no. I want to watch them celebrate.
So I hadn't watched any parade stuff. I did see that pop up on a notification, that comment from Big Papa, and so then I decided to watch it. And right now, KDot, the question is, if you are a man, would you allow another man to pull you up like that? So the video itself is kind of funny because it is very sweet, and Saquon, big guy, like, pulls this guy out of the crowd, but it looks like he's lifting a toddler. And there are a lot of different people going, oh, I wouldn't let another man do that to me. That's what it ended up devolving into. But there's no need to see it. Don't worry about it.
Unless Keke Palmer's in lingerie telling me that she wants to take my hand in marriage at the end of that fucking clip, I ain't watching it.
All right. Well, then you might want to. Here's Coach Lombard. There are two ways to contain Saquon Barkley. Injure Jalen Hurts or run a base cover 2 defense. I would strongly suggest loading up on inside linebackers. Get out your reaction.
Yeah, thanks. So fuck.
We need to do more late night pods. This is I'm loving your energy right now.
Yeah.
Hey, look.
Thanks, Coach.
We're gonna invest in that. Coach agreed. And then we conclude with we conclude with Jess Santo.
You know what? I do believe you can win a game if you score more points.
It's been well documented that happens.
Just say it.
Sup, fuckers? Sippy time. Just did that. If your takeaway from the Super Bowl is that we played the Eagles better than the Chiefs and we're not far away, you are sorely mistaken. That's some loser thinking type shit. I hate to say it, but the Eagles are a powerhouse and they have a deep roster. Our offense was fantastic in 2024, but the run game was non-existent for long stretches throughout the season. The defense was also terrible against the run and susceptible to big plays. The NFC East has a hell of a schedule in 2025 as well. It's going to be an uphill battle. Luck does have a big part in when you are rebuilding. If you look at the Giants, they're screwed. This year's draft class of rookie quarterbacks doesn't hold a candle to last year's. This year's draft class is loaded with defensive linemen, tight ends, and running backs. All positions of need for the Commanders. We need to draft offensive line, defensive line, tight end, corner, wide receiver, and an all-world running back. If you give Jaden a dangerous run game, this offense would be unstoppable. Look at the Cardinals, Browns, and Lions games from 2024. As far as defense, get Myles Garrett here. It would completely change the defense as far as the pass rush and run defense. I'd be fine 2 first-rounders and Payne, Allen, or Newton. Our first-rounders are not going to be hitting like they used to. As far as free agent wide receivers, Deebo is not a locker room fit. Kupp could pan out for cheap, similar to Ertz, and we cannot pay Higgins more than Terry. People need to give Sinnott, McCaffrey, and Newton time to develop. Jalen Carter did not look all-world his rookie season. The Eagles are stacked and in the division. They are our nemesis. We cannot compete for Super Bowls until we can regularly beat them. It will take some big name free agents and great drafts to get the roster up to par. Jaden is no Peter Pan. He is the breaker of souls, the slender assassin, the warlock of football, the commander of clutch. Love the show. Share this shit. Get out your reaction to Jess's comment.
That's actually my mission statement going forward is beat the Eagles. Whatever you have to do to build a roster or build a team to beat the fucking Eagles, you got it. You figured it out. Like, that's all I want to do. I find it to be, I'm grateful we play in the same division as those fuckers right now. Like, I'm truly grateful of it. We have the benchmark that we know we need to hit every fucking year. Like, they're right there. Go fucking do it. And I want to so badly. I don't know that team. Oh, God, do I know anyone that's left on this team from last year going into next year? I want to beat those fuckers badly. Yeah, look, we said it time and time again. They are just the most talented team in the league. I just think that you can, and to be able to play the way that they were, which is like, hearing anyone post Super Bowl start to talk about Vic Fangio, and I was like, I don't not respect Vic Fangio. He didn't do a goddamn thing. Like he didn't do anything. He just ran the base defense out there and said, "You're more talented. Go play." Like it's like there was no like Steve Spagnuolo's over there trying everything to get something working, right? Like Spags was way out coached anything that Vic was doing. Vic was just like, go, like just you four stay there. Do we need to blitz coach? No, you don't. Like just stay in your fucking.
So KDot, let me ask you this. If you were defensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles last season, what is their rank in the NFL?
Oh, yeah, no, like, if I would have sabotaged the fuck out of these fuckers. Like, if they were dumb enough to get me in the fucking building, Zach Bond would have never done shit. He could have had a fucking crowbar.
You just bench him.
New defense coordinator for the Eagles. Lunges and strikes multiple players of the defense with a weapon. What? Like week before a Commanders game? What the fuck is that? Yeah, it's no. Yeah, fuck that shit. No, in all honesty, I'm not saying Vic Fangio didn't do anything over the course of the season. He absolutely did. There were some games where he couldn't play the base defense. I mean, you saw it. In some games against us, he had to make some adjustments. Yeah. It was just in the Super Bowl. If you're using the Super Bowl as the example, the Vic Fangio he didn't do anything. There was nothing he was doing. He's standing there. Like he's just standing there. Maybe he was motivating. Maybe he was a great motivator. I know Vic can rile people up, so maybe that's all he was doing. And with that group of characters, I don't know what the motivation tactic that exists that you can speak to Jalen Carter and Cooper DeJean and say the same things and get great output. I don't know what language that is. Okay? I don't know what kind of code switching you need to make that shit happen.
Yeah. Jess, your comment was awesome. The reason I think so is because a lot of people just experienced this NFC Championship game run and now assume this is us for, the foreseeable future. And it's easy to think it. I get it. It's exciting. It's a bit prisoner of the moment, though. And I really like in your comment, Jess, going, hey, in order to get to where we want to, we need to dominate the division, is what you basically said, right? You need to beat the Philadelphia Eagles, because if you don't, and you're getting swept by these guys, and honestly, you're splitting with these guys, which reduces your margin for error, then you're going on the road again. And there are not many instances in NFL history where you are the road team and you win the Super Bowl. There are a few, but you can't be that team over and over and over again. Maybe once. It just doesn't happen. You have to win the division. And in order to win the division, you need to be the best. And that is beating the Philadelphia Eagles. That is beating the Dallas Cowboys. That is beating the New York Giants. That's how all good teams in history start, is by dominating their division. The Eagles did so this year. That's why they're Super Bowl champions. We want to be able to do the same thing, and it's going to take time. And I appreciate your comment, because it's going to take time, and it's important that everybody knows it is going to take time. It's not just one off season. It's going to be 2 or 3, but then we can be perennial contenders and be dominant in this division. And that goes back to the Bet Boy comment, which is we hit the fucking lottery with Jaden Daniels. So it makes it easier to get to that point.
Yeah, 100%. I was thinking of this at one point during the season. I don't think, if I'm looking at the most talented football teams of all time, like if I have that conversation, I don't think this Philadelphia roster necessarily reaches the highs of certain other great teams. Like from a talent standpoint, like there have been teams with better positional units, like one guy who's clearly better than anybody that they might have. But this might be the highest floor I think I've ever seen of any team going into a season.
Yeah.
Over the course of the season.
KDot, their losses. I mean, 1, Jalen Hurts gets hurt. 2, Saquon drops the ball. If he catches it, it's a first down against the Falcons. That game's over. And the other one was a proper loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But then they hit their bye week, and then the only loss was to us when Jalen Hurts got hurt. And we deserved that win, obviously. And we did what we needed to do. And Jaden's coming out party with the 5 touchdowns. But that's what it took, right? A quarterback throwing for 5 touchdowns, 1 at the death, to be able to win that game. These guys, in terms of that floor, extremely dominant.
No, I mean,
right.
We go into last season saying that they were the most talented team in our division at the very minimum. And then that was without seeing any of the rookies play. And then they fucking play. And you're like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, look, I don't have... There's no part of me that thinks that anybody can just create what it is that Philadelphia created. I don't think so. I also don't think that if you look at a team like Philadelphia to stay as healthy as they did over the course of the season in their playoff run, it like everything kind of converged and worked for them, right? I just want to beat those fuckers. I don't think you need to be as talented as them to beat them.
I agree. So, yeah, that being said, it doesn't mean we can't beat them next year. Obviously, we've already beaten them once. And that's really, really good news for this young roster as we continue forward to be able to beat them once again. Any final thoughts, KDot?
We should probably wrap up before I say something get me in trouble.
Cool. This was
Ricky Lubo!
This was District Divided. Oh boy. Yeah, this was District Divided DC Sports Podcast. More specifically, a Washington Commanders podcast. I am Amit. That is KDot. Thank you guys so much for listening. And thank you for putting up with the last 2 episodes where I've been abroad. I will be back next week, back in DC, where moving forward, we're looking to get more guests. We are looking to do more after the pods. We'll have time to do that. And so thanks for putting up with the last couple. Really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed the episode, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment as you always do, and KDot.
Make sure you use only the greatest of acids when you're disposing of bodies so you can get back in the country and there's no evidence against you. And it's shit!
Share this shit. And a special thanks to KDot, who's putting up with the time difference right now. You're crushing it. I love this episode, man. So we will see you guys next Friday, 2 p.m. as always. So until then, take it easy.
Oh, you get to hear my stuff on Dick's joke now. Ha ha! Bye, bitches!
In DC, we're just hoping that you listen.